First question up here.
What does the end of one of those interventions sound like? How do you close one?
That's a great question. She asked, what does the end of the intervention sound like? It depends. I don't do it here because I'm in LA, but I carry around a little resource guide in my pocket. And I urge you, if you start doing this, and it doesn't, even if you don't really want to go out and do this actively, people will want community resources. We need, when you look at the literature on people who exit cults, one of the things that keeps them in cults in the first place is the interpersonal milieu, the personal relationships. So places like this, CFI is fantastic. I have a friend who's a humanist minister in Portland. If you know humanist ministers or humanist groups, it's fantastic. I try to leave people, usually those people are in the action stage of change. I leave them with some resources, people they can go to. If I find out when in the rapport building part of the conversation they like some of the same activities that I do, like jiu-jitsu or what have you, I invite them to roll or work out with me. A lot of people I've helped disabuse of faith have become friends of mine. If they're in the pre-contemplative stage, in other words, if they're in the earlier stage, I can't give you a direct answer to the question, but because it's different. Can you kill those lights just a little bit? Thanks. If they're in the early stages of change, sometimes they're what's called in the Greek aporia, kind of a state of puzzlement, if you will. I do my best to make sure to try to follow up with people. So I think if you have the time, just jot down or text yourself people's email addresses so you could follow up and then help them, offer them community resources.
And then when you're done with the question, hand me back the mic and speak into the mic this way, not this way, otherwise it won't work.
Okay, so I would ask this same question to a Christian missionary, and not to be confrontational, but why are you so concerned with poking holes in other people's faith?
Oh, so the question is, why am I so concerned about poking holes in other people's faith? I'm sorry if I gave that impression. I don't want to poke holes in people's faith, and I'm really sorry if I have communicated that. I want the complete and total eradication of the faith virus. The reason that I want to do that, and I articulated that in the slide, is that if everybody lived on their own island, or if we were in some kind of a matrix, but there was only one entity in the matrix, wouldn't make any difference what people believe. But we live in a democracy. People have been hurt. I can give a wide range of social and public policies, whether it's George Bush's praying and to invade Iraq. And by the way, if you've prayed to invade Iraq and you think God has told you to invade Iraq, it makes belief revision very difficult. It makes it very difficult for members of the homosexual community here. Or even on a more practical level, people like Rick Perry praying for rain. We have a crisis in this country, and the crisis is that people formulate their beliefs on something other than reason and evidence. And it really is, as my friend Stefan Molinus, it's like a backward roadmap. People think that they're helping themselves, that they're flourishing as human beings, but they're destroying their lives and the lives of their communities. All right, next question.
Hi, Bruce from Backyard Skeptics. I do a lot of outreach programs with the groups, very much like what you do on an individual basis. But some of my members don't want to come down because they don't want to consider themselves evangelic atheists. How would I convince people to do what you're doing without having an aggressive outlook toward changing the minds of people?
That's a great question. First of all, as I mentioned in the presentation, there's nothing evangelical about this. I don't know. First of all, I don't know any evangelical, anybody of any faith tradition who preaches belief revision. That's exactly the opposite of what they preach. They preach, this is the way, this is the truth. You know, doubt your doubts, as the famous Mormon said. I want to finish, but I was pausing for the sirens. I'm deaf in one ear, and those ripped through my head. Yeah. So here's what I would suggest. Yes, it is true that I am looking for 10,000 people and there's a chapter in Los Angeles called Street Epistemology. Yes, it is true that I am looking for 10,000 people to actively go out and do this pretty much full time. However, for the vast majority of everybody else, who this just doesn't work for them, well, one, there are many volunteer opportunities that have nothing to do with this. Two, you can just wait until people come to you. You don't have to go speak to anybody. Or you're at a family house, a gathering, or your friends, and it comes up. You'll be better able to deal with this in a way that's more constructive and less adversarial. So if people don't want to do this, I wouldn't convince anybody to do this. People have to reach their own level of comfort. And maybe that's just a simple thing like maybe their loved one is a Mormon. I have people all the time say, oh, it was great, but my wife converted to X, and now I'm like, she's not sleeping with me and all this stuff. And well, street epistemology. Do people need to do what they're comfortable with? Yeah, next question.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bob Silence. I agree with the concept of epistemology and everything you said wholeheartedly. And because of that, the one glaring thing that should be a glaring thing in the room, and I'm sorry that Atheists United have such a nice logo, is in the word atheist itself. It goes right to the issue you're addressing about don't attack God because you're attacking the result and then they can do it. And so I really take exception to the word atheist, or for that matter, talking about God at all. So in terms of, I think now myself as a humanist, because that implies that the human mind has the power.
So what's your question?
To do the epistemology. So how do you feel about that? I mean, should we not ever even think about using the word God or atheism? We should be humanists, so that because all religions have humans.
Yeah, I'm not the language police. I'm not going out and telling everybody what words they should use or shouldn't use. I also, there's considerable disagreement and debate upon whether or not atheism should be an identity. It's not an identity for me in the same way that not collecting stamps is an identity. So I'm not the language police, and I can't tell people. It is just not my place to tell people not only how they should identify, but words. I will tell you, it's really interesting when I speak before crowds. I speak for a lot of people. One of the things that always comes up is someone's always upset with the definitions of words that I've used. We need some basic definitions in order to move the conversation forward. And you're absolutely correct. The fact that theist is contained in the word atheist makes it confusing. And people think that there's a parallelism there. People think that just as the theist firmly believes in God, the atheist firmly does not believe in God. And I've said repeatedly, not only to me is it not a big deal if people believe in God, it doesn't make any difference. It's the underlying belief-forming mechanism. Not only is it not a big deal, but it's the wrong way to conceptualize the problem to begin with. All right, next question.
We're going to come back up there, so I'll get you, and then I'll come right back to you after. So we're going to ask a question here. I'll come around now.
I would like to thank you very much for working on this and presenting us with tools, because for many, many years I've talked to people who have religious beliefs, and what you've done in terms of breaking it down to the belief mechanism and faith is very important, and I understand that, and I really want to thank you for that. I have a few questions, but specifically in terms of when you said to that person that you were theoretically explaining on the airplane about what other superstitions do you believe in. When you said that, did they not get angry at that?
No, because the report had, well, first of all, thank you. I will say very quickly on the comment, yeah, I wrote a book. People like it, don't like it, doesn't make a difference. But it doesn't do any good if nobody uses the book. So forget about reading the book. Use it. We have to give people the tools so they're going to use it, or this torrent of insanity is just going to continue. So it's not enough that you read the book. That's like step one. But no, almost never the people, and I'm always asked this, how do you do it? So that people, how do you have the patience to do it? I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe it's that I've taught for 25 years in overcrowded public universities, and I've heard just about anything anybody could possibly say. But I really think that part of the other thing is being genuinely open to revise your own beliefs. And in fact, when I do these interventions, if people say things that I don't know, the first thing I do is say, I don't know. And I do that almost with a sense of pride. I do that because it's a type of modeling, so that I've modeled I don't know, so that makes it okay for them to say I don't know. Again, I've set the tone for the intervention right from the beginning. Thank you for the question.
Can you tell us why people would even let you into their church or temple or mosque? I'm amazed.
Ask Ian Dodd. Was he here? Oh, you mean for the Reason Whisperer? Oh, yeah. It's we're going to have a trailer up in about a week, and it's on Facebook, The Reason Whisperer. So here's what I do. Again, this is total sincerity. Anytime anybody asks me a question, I will tell them the truth. I never pretend that I'm religious. I never wear a uniform or a costume. So usually what I'll do is went to a mega church in Target. I'll go and I'll meet people, and they're incredibly friendly, astonishingly friendly. And of course they're friendly because that's a manifestation of the faith virus. And so I'll just build rapport, and I have use a friend's cell phone, and we get some numbers, and then as they're coming out, we have people sign a waiver, and then we begin the process of their deconversion. Now, people in the church, if we can't find enough people who sign the waiver, then I just contact the people in the church I've befriended. But the cameras themselves are not in the church. They're immediately outside as people walk to their cars. And we've found locations in which there are longer distances, so it's more likely that someone will come.
As we continue with the questions, I just want to remind people, keep the questions direct and about the presentation. So here you go.
Thank you. I was wondering, how do you overcome the fear, and to some extent there seems to be a certain amount of infantile narcissism that goes with people of faith. They don't want to confront it because it will diminish them and they can't deal with it. How do you confront that fear?
Not sure I understand the question. So rephrase the question if you don't mind.
Yeah, it has been my experience that a lot of people who are devoutly religious and so forth are afraid to or to deal with anything other than their belief system. So if I were to ask them, why can you not see this any other way or something, they'll tell you that they will deny every...
Yeah, okay, there you go, boom. The words that you use, why can't you not see this in any other way, that invokes a defensive posture. So there's a great little book that I'd recommend. It's John Loftus's Outsider Test for Faith. If you haven't read it, it's great. But that I've been using this for about a year, some of these techniques of attempting to help people to realize that the beliefs they have are indeed delusions by helping them to understand that the beliefs that other people have are delusions. And then I'm always careful that I let them come make their own inference. But again, a lot of that comes in the first few moments of rapport building, and it's words that you use. And I just gave a few words that you use, but the tone and the phraseology are extremely important in that.
In your book, you talk about sophisticated believers. It's an endnote in one of your chapters,
right,
about people who simultaneously deceive themselves while alternating between two stances.
Yeah.
It seems like that, and I know people like that, it seems like they would be very difficult people to engage, because first they'll say one thing, and then they'll say, oh, I'm not unreasonable, I don't believe he walked on water, but then they'll change their mind. How would you...
Well, they have
deal
to
with
do that. They have to do that if you've stuck to the program. If you've gone off and talked about abortion, well, they don't have to do it. They're off the hook, right? They have to resort to non-epistemic defenses for their beliefs. Look, if one holds a belief on the basis of faith, by definition, that means you don't have enough evidence for it. The confidence value you have assigned to the belief is insufficient to warrant the belief. That's why you use the word faith at all. Faith is the word that people use when they don't have enough evidence for something, but they're just going to believe it anyway. It's an epistemology. So that's why, for example, to get back to the gentleman's question, I don't know where he is before, but that's why when you're engaging people of faith, they'll have to have a non-epistemic defense. In other words, they'll have to be offended, be insulted, cry, be hostile. Of course they have to. There's nothing else they can do other than change their mind. And the reason that they have to do that is because the degree of confidence in the belief does not match the evidence for the belief. So there's nothing else they can do, But again, even getting there, you have to stick to faith. That's the one of the deliverables I'd love to leave everybody with. Do not taint or contaminate these conversations with anything else other than what we're talking about. Anything else is a distraction, and you will not help somebody.
I have two very close friends who became religious. One, when his mother died, he would have killed himself, except he felt he would meet her again by becoming religious. He's Jewish. The other friend, her son was a police officer and was killed in duty, and she became very religious because she would see him again when she dies. How do you deal with it? I mean, I have never confronted either of them, and I wouldn't even know where to start.
It depends. Look, I wrote in the book when my mom died last year. She never spoke to me about being religious. She never. I just didn't even know, but she had a really horrifying death, frankly. But my dad brought her a little statue of the baby Jesus every day, and sorry, but I even though I do this all the time, I didn't feel the need to help my mother develop a more reliable epistemology on her deathbed. I mean, that would be kind of ridiculous. So you need to triage, in a sense. You need to find the cases in which people's lives are the most dangerous or the most damaged, and then go from there.
I'm going to move on to another question and remind people that keep the questions quick, direct, and about the topic.
Have you ever tried using any of your techniques?
Where are you? I'm not seeing you.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Yeah,
okay.
Hi.
Have you ever tried using any of your techniques to deal with followers of Indian religions such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, etc.?
Yeah, I have. I've found, in fact, I just did an episode in a temple. Yeah, I have. I've found that okay, so there's a hierarchy of degrees of difficulty of this. The absolute top hierarchy, bar none, my lowest success rates are Jehovah's Witnesses. Wow, see that? There's something that must be particularly virulent about that strain of the virus that makes it difficult to dislodge. I mean, I have an extraordinarily low success rate with them. In fact, my editor was telling me I should write a whole book on just how to do Jehovah's Witnesses interventions, and I told him I'm not qualified. Yeah, Indian religion, Hinduism. So when I do that, usually I seek it out. Hindus in this country are not proselytizers. So I have gone into temples, and I have reason whispered to people using these tools, the Socratic method. Here's part of the problem I find with that. And I just was talking to somebody about this on the way out. I was just talking to Buck Bowen, great job, about this on the way out before the show, is that if somebody doesn't speak English as a first language or isn't really fluent in English, these are really, really hard. Like, I tried to do this at a Buddhist monastery, and the people, one step up above broken. It's incredibly difficult to do broken English if English isn't a first language. But yes, I have, and yes, they've been reasonably successful. And which one of the things that I found, at least in this country, when I do this with Muslims, those interactions are always friendly. I've yet to have a single Muslim student who's gone ballistic or upset. I think that's a myth, Frank. In this country, I can't speak to other countries. But yeah, I have, and it's worked very well.
So when you're dealing with, I understand that, the people who have more fundamentalist religious ideas, that they seem to be everywhere, and they're militant. I mean, I was checking my wife into the hospital, and the woman that checked her in was saying, "Which religion do you belong to?" And then she said, "Well, we don't have that in the computer," And she was trying to convert us right there to Christianity. She said, "You need to get back to the Lord," And even her doctor in the gerontology department was this Chinese guy who wanted to, to pray with us, right? So we're surrounded by people who are very militant and who have very dangerous ideas on the one hand, but then we have the other people, the Unitarians and very
I
liberal.
have to ask, what's your question?
Okay, I'm making a comment. My question is, do you see a difference between the very liberal people who we might work together with on certain common causes, and do you treat them any differently?
You got to get rid of that notion. Seriously, you have to get rid of that notion that there's somehow these it's the liberal believers and frankly, at the risk of enraging, the Unitarians that I have the most difficulty with. I have the most difficulty with them for a number of reasons. I think many fundamentalists with whom I've dealt are incredibly sincere. You are going to hell. That is a person that I can hang out with and have a beer with. It is. It just is. Because those people are very sincere. Yeah, they're very sincere with their beliefs. They say what they mean. They don't obfuscate. They don't use language that's phony or fake. I have problems with people who are inauthentic, insincere, and phony and fake. And I find a lot of the quote-unquote liberal believers, they don't believe that nonsense. And they're not sincere and honest about their beliefs. And they're giving cover to those people who are fundamentalists.
We got two more questions, and then we're going to serve. But in the meantime, please do not get up in the middle to serve yourself until we're done. We got two more questions. Just please, a little bit more patience until we're done.
Yeah, I have a very short question. Have you ever believed in God yourself?
No. Well, maybe when I was like 4 or something, but no, not really.
That was quick enough. I'll get this one back here.
Okay. I take issue with your that faith is a virus. I think that people are just brainwashed. They're born into it. They believe it. How do you move somebody who's so brainwashed and doesn't have a virus, because that you can cure, who's so brainwashed that they can't really think rationally?
Okay. Perhaps I should have been more clear. The idea that faith was a virus did not originate with me. Dawkins has talked about it. Brody has talked about it. Darrell Ray, who has a number of books, The God Virus is one of the books, has talked about it. So I certainly would not want to take claim for such a marvelous and descriptive idea. I think it's helpful to think about faith as a virus, not only at an individual level, but it really is how it spreads and it's contained with vectors, but on a macro level, epidemiologically. And that's the first answer to the question. The second answer to the question is, what I've given here in this talk is just chapter 4. This is not enough to do what you need to do. These are just blunt strategies. You need surgical tools to do the rest. And the rest is a combination of something, again, pulling from diverse bodies of literature, and my primary treatment modality, which is the Socratic method. So that's what I use in conjunction with this. Do we have time for one more?
One last question over
Last
here.
one. Hi.
Hi. So I guess most of the activity that you're engaged in is one-on-one, kind of casual conversations. You say you go into churches, so I'm wondering, or places of worship. So I'm wondering what the ministries there think that they're getting out of having you deal with their congregation.
Oh, they have no idea who I am. I mean, I don't wear a T-shirt. Street Epistemologist. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. One more big round of applause for Peter. Thank you very much.